Hello, welcome to this video on the Bodhicaryavatara, chapter 7, verse 16. I will call up the verse for you. There we are. Avishada balavyuhatat paryatma vidheyata paratma samata chaiva paratma parivartanam. And again, Avishada balavyuhatat paryatma vidheyata paratma samata chaiva paratma parivartanam. Now that, on the face of it, is a rather disconcerting list of nouns. There's no verb that in this verse, that comes in the next verse. All of these things, in the following verses, all these things are to be practiced. This is just a list of things. So this is just a list. And not only is it a list, but the entire first line, Avishada balavyuhatat paryatma vidheyata, is one long compound consisting of a whole lot of nouns run into one. So grammatically, it behaves like one word, though in fact the meaning is several words, just as we can say the sun and the moon and the stars. In Sanskrit, you can say sun, moon, stars as a single noun, or on the face of it, it looks like a single noun, but in fact it means the sun and the moon and the stars. So a man can talk about son's daughters, meaning his sons and his daughters, and so on. It's called a dvandva. A dvandva just means a pairing or a doubling. You double up the words. It would have been correct equally to say avishado balavyuhas tatparyam atmavidheyata, treating them all as fully declined nouns. But this is a grammatically correct way of doing it. It's done a lot more in Sanskrit than in English. So let's deal with these words one by one. The first word, avishada. Avishada is non-despondency. Sanskrit is very fond of expressing a positive quality by the negation of its opposite. So, for example, instead of saying cheerfulness and energy, it's non-despondency. It's highlighting what you must not do in order to divert you to what you should do. Let me call up my iPad screen for you. There we are. So the root sad, meaning to sit, and the prefix vi is cognate with our English word sit and Latin sedere and the word saddle, all come from that same root. Vi, the prefix vi, as we know, means separation or apart. To sit sometimes has on its own a pejorative connotation as the opposite of standing. So in other words, if you're standing, you've got your energy and your strength, you're ready to deal with something. If you're sitting, you're kind of sitting down on the job, as it were. So vishada, sitting apart, in other words, going to pieces, falling apart, I can't do it. Not standing up to face the difficulty, but vishada, sitting and just your energy is blown apart, it's gone. That is vishada. Now, as so often happens, we can make a verbal noun of from a root that has a short a followed by a single consonant. We can make the verbal noun just by lengthening the a to a and making it an a noun. So sada, vishada. It's a rule of phonetics, almost universally applied, that where in the same word, and by the way, if you put a prefix onto a word, then it counts as part of that same word. So if in the same word you get an S preceded by a vowel other than A or A, it changes from S to Sh. So Vishada, originally from Visada, Vishada. And then Avishada, not falling apart. So non-despondency, Avishada. The next noun is of itself a compound noun. So you've got two nouns, Bala Vyuha, forming a compound within a compound. So if we take the compound railway station car park, we can treat that as one compound word, but it can be broken down into, so car park, we treat that almost as a single word, even though it's a compound of two other words, so car and park, car park. Railway station, put those together, railway station. So if we say the railway station car park, that is one compound word. In Sanskrit it would be treated as one compound word, but made up of elements that are themselves compounded of smaller elements. So railway to become railway, railway station, car, and then park, put the car park, railway station, car park. The same kind of thing as happens in Sanskrit. And the same has happened here. So the Bala Vyuha, two words, Bala and Vyuha, become a compound, Bala Vyuha, but treated as a single entity. So Evishada, non-despondency, Bala Vyuha, an array, an assemblage of strength or skills. This word Vyuha, there's the root U, which in fact is a twin root with the very common Va, meaning to carry, cognate with VEH as in our word vehicle, which is something that carries, and in a different form to convey, it's that same root. So a twin, a softened form rather than Va, just U, also meaning to carry. And then the idea is to move, and Vyuha, which by Santi becomes Vyuha, moving apart, moving around, then in the sense of an extended sense of moving together, disposing of something, making an array of them. So an assemblage, you move them around, but so as to bring them into one assembly. So that's the Vyuha. So a Bala Vyuha, Bala means strength or competence. So the Bala Vyuha means that you have or should work on acquiring or developing an array of different powers, an array of different skills and abilities. So we've got the Avishada, Bala Vyuha, Tatparya. Note in the text, let me call it back up for you, there we are. I've had to join those together. You see where the A with the circumflexes, in fact it's Tatparya, and the new word Atma, but the short A at the end of Tatparya and the long A at the beginning of Atma join together then to become Tatparyatma. So Tatparyatma. Let's just analyze this word Tatparya. Go back to my note screen. This word para, which is in fact cognate with our English word far, and also a word associated with it is para, which means that which is far, and also the far shore, or the beyond, the pradnya param ita, the wisdom gone beyond, or the wisdom gone to the far shore. But with a short a, right, the micron here, the short a, para, The most common meaning, and we'll see it below in this same verse, as in Paratma Samata and Paratma Parivartanam. The most common meaning of para is other, the different, that which is further from you. But as the final element of a compound, it very often means one's ultimate aim, your furthest goal, that's far, but the one that you're seeking to attain. So, tatpara means something like devoted to that, that meaning that, devoted to that, or having that as one's goal. It can also be in a pejorative sense, mean addicted to something, or obsessed with it. You know, that you're devoting your tatpara, you're focused on that as the only thing you want. Tatpara, that goal, having that as the goal. Tatpara is a compound adjective, a possessive adjective, meaning having something as one's goal, having that as your goal. In the Bhagavad Gita, you very often see Krishna using the phrase saying that this word matpara, mat is the combining form of aham, me. So Krishna says, he who is the true yogi is matpara. In other words, devoted to me, totally given over to me, matpara. So tatpara, devoted to that. Now you'll see I put a note about this in the notes at the bottom of this verse. I'll call it up for you. There we are. I've given a note about the formation of abstract nouns. There are various ways of forming abstract nouns. This is just one of them. That you take this adjective, tatpara, literally that, devoted, not devoted to that. That's a compound adjective. And you can make an abstract noun by giving vriddhi, that's the strengthening of the first vowel. And then instead of final a, you make it a ya. So it's like adding, nest to something to make an abstract noun out of it. So tatpara, devoted to that. Tatparya, devotion, the state or quality or state of being devoted to something. When it's used on its own like this, tatparya, it can have the meaning of the ability to dedicate yourself wholly to something. And that is what, on my interpretation, I'll welcome other ones, it means here. So it means the ability to identify your artha, a goal, and to devote yourself totally to it without letting obstacles get in the way. That is tatparya. Atmavidheta. Atmavidheta, again, this is a compound word from Atma, the self, vidheta. I've done a note on the meaning of vidhi, vidheta, but let me go through it here. Back to my pad, here we are. The root dhi, the basic meaning of that root is to put something. It's cognate with the Greek root the, which we get as, for example, we get the word synthesis and synthesis, putting together. Incidentally, the Sanskrit word sandhi, which is the merger of sounds in phonetics, sandhi is cognate with the Greek synthesis. It means putting together. So the vidhi, vi can mean separately or apart, rather like the Latin dis, and the dhi to place or posit. So the formation of the Sanskrit word vidhi exactly reflects the formation of the Latin word, which of course we now have in English, to dispose. To dispose, not necessarily, not in the sense of getting rid of something, to dispose of something, but to make your dispositions, to arrange, to put things in order. Like, for example, in our proverb, man proposes, God disposes. So that's the vidhi in that sense, to dispose, to make the arrangement, to say how things are going to be, to put them in order. That's vidhi. You can make a passive participle or potential participle by adding ya. So, and with guna vidheya means disposable, capable of being disposed, capable of being arranged. So and you can make an abstract noun by vidheya ta. The ending ta is like the abstract ending, iti. So atma vidheyata means self-disposability, meaning like malleability, workability. That we've got ourselves with all the various laziness, bad habits and evils. But it's the ability to rearrange yourself, to take control of what you're doing and what's going on. Right, it's all over the place, slave to passions, hatreds, delusions. But the atmavidheyata, the self-arrangeability, the self-disposability, right, no longer, this is how I'm going to organize it. This is how I'm going to arrange myself. So in other words, you are putting yourself in order, seeing what's wrong, said, right, now we change this. This is how it will be. You're making a vidhi, you're making a disposal of it. So atmavidheyata means the quality of the self being arrangeable in that way, self-arrangeability. In the translation that I'd copied here, self-control, it's more than self-control, but it includes self-control, but also is more than that. So avishada, non-despondency, balavyuha, an array of different capabilities and strength. Tatparya, the ability to focus on a goal and really go for it. Atmavidheyata, the quality of making yourself malleable, workable, rearranging yourself. Now to the second line, paratma samata chaiva paratma parivartanam. These are rather simpler. So I mentioned above that a more common meaning of the word para is other. And here we have paratma samat para. So para, other, atma, self, sama actually is the same as the English word same, etymologically one word, and samata means sameness. So para, atma, samata, self, other, sameness. In other words, treating yourself on footing of complete equality as if there is no difference between you and others. Not just equality, but actually feeling their joy and feeling their pain and accepting it. In other words, not creating a barrier. This is me, that's him. We're different. I don't care about him. So paratma samata, that what happens to other people happens to you. Their life is your life. Their suffering is your suffering. That's paratma samata. So, and not treating yourself better than others. Not treating yourself differently from others. So it's the Sanskrit way of expressing something like, do as you would be done by, broadly speaking. Paratma samata. Paratma samata chaiva. Cha eva. Cha and eva is just the emphatic particle. It often does add a meaning, but this is one of the cases where it doesn't. It's just and indeed, and indeed. What's the real difference? So cha eva by sandhi becomes chaiva. So Paramatma Samata cha eva, which is Paramatma Samata chaiva. Paratma Parivartanam. Again, we have this juxtaposition of para and atma in Paratma Parivartanam. So para, atma, parivartana. Parivartana, self-other exchanging. The root vrit. The basic meaning is to turn, and it also means to proceed, or just to exist in a certain way. But the root meaning is to turn, and we have it also in the Latin root vertere, to turn, to invert, to turn upside down. If you're an extrovert, you're turned outwards. You can be introvert, turned inwards. To divert is to turn aside, to turn away. This parivartanam, pari, the idea of meaning around, so, or swapping around. So parivartanam, the swapping around of para and the atma, the other and self-swapping. In other words, being able to put yourself completely in the position of another is broadly the same kind of idea as paratma samata, but expressed in a slightly different way. It's like the interchangeability. Somebody's going to have good fortune, right? What difference is it? He can have it or I can have it. That's the paratma parivartana. And being a neuter noun, it of course ends in an Paratma parivartanam. Note that the word for self, the stem is atman. It's a masculine noun. Like many masculine nouns that end in stem an, the nominative is atma. The accusative is atmanam. And that's, as you know, is what becomes in Pali atta, and the accusative reflecting the Sanskrit accusative is attanam. So the atma of the Sanskrit becomes a-double-t in Pali. Atta, atma, atta. In the combining form, that is when it's part of a compound immediately followed by another word, it just becomes atma, like that. So paratma samata, paratma parivartanam. And the same in Pali, in the as a member of a compound, as a non-final member of a compound word, is just atta. So I will now read through this verse again, slowly. Let me call it back up for you. There we are. Avishada balavyuha tatparyatma vidheyata paratma samata chaiva paratma parivartanam. And again. Avishada balavyuha tatparyatma vidheyata paratma samata chaiva paratma parivartanam. So that's it on verse 16. Remember, this is just a list of things, and the verb governing that list, or what you've got to do with that list, that follows in the next verse, verse 17. That's it. Thank you.